So I thought I'd talk about what I was doing 10 years ago today. I'm actually slightly lying. It was 10 years ago in 2 days. And I was going through some of my stuff and I found this blog post that I wrote from a while back. And actually on January 29th, 2015, I had a bucket list thing happen, my friends, and I was featured in National Geographic, the online version. I know it's not the National Geographic magazine, but it got me thinking to like why I was in it. And it wasn't just me. It wasn't some like, we have a biography on Andrew Kinkella. It's like, no. This was a write-up of some of the research that we were doing, the archaeology team, at the Blanca pools in Belize, right? And we were diving the pools, and so National Geographic did a write-up, and there was a photo of me in it, right? Although I'm in all my diving stuff, you cannot tell it's me. But even so, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, there I am. I'm in National Geographic, right? It was still very cool. It was still very cool. Even though it was just the online one, still very cool. But I remember that day really well because that dive became kind of scary. And so it's funny that there's this photo in National Geographic and it's like, but the story behind the scenes of that photo is one of fear and trepidation. So here's what happened. The deal was that me and a dive buddy were going down to 70 feet. And this is in the cenotes, right? These are in the pools. They're like little mini lakes. They can be really deep. They can be like 200 feet deep. This was one of the deep ones. But we were going down to 70 feet to take some carbon-14 samples, right? I know, it's like really archaeological and scientific, right? And we're taking carbon-14 samples from a tree trunk, basically, because in this cenote, over the decades and centuries and millennia, there were trees, like jungle trees, that would fall into the water and sink. And so what we were hoping to do is take some samples from these trees just to get some dates, right? Because trees are living organisms, or were once living, and you can get really good carbon-14 samples. So, but doing this underwater is way harder than doing it on land. So what we did is we dove down, and one of us had what I like to refer to as the world's sharpest saw. It was like this big ass saw. It was like the world's largest switchblade. It was like this big, and you'd flip it out to this serrated edge saw that was, dude, you guys, it was crazy sharp. And you would, of course, then underwater be able to saw into the tree trunk. But because you're underwater, every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So it was a pain and a half to keep your neutral buoyancy. So when we're scuba diving, we want to stay like this, right? With your head here and your legs here, and not like this. So I'm kind of sitting there like this. My dive buddy's sitting there like this. I go down with him, right? And then I'm the one who cuts first. So I'm like at the log and I'm cutting and I'm doing it, right? And I'm feeling good. And you're extra scared with this super sharp saw because you have like your lifeline, otherwise known as your air hose, going to your mouth. One nick and that thing's gonna be like psh, right? So you're taking it easy, you're going. My dive buddy has the little baggies that we use to collect the samples. So I cut one out, I give it to him, he takes it, puts it in the baggie. We do a few of those at a few different trees, then we switch. He cuts for a while, I got the baggies. Our dive is going great. And sometimes dives go like okay or not that well, but this one, I swear, it was going really well, right? Everything was like in balance, if that makes sense. And I remember thinking, wow, this is going really great, right? When I'm down there. Although I did notice once or twice that I was getting tired from doing the sawing and trying to like maintain your sort of flatness and sawing. So I started to kind of over breathe my regulator. And what that means in dive speak is you're kind of going like a little too much, right? So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, you got to calm down. Like, let's take it easy. Breathe it on out, breathe it on in. And I was really able to control my breathing, which was great, right? So I was able to kind of bring myself back down, and I was cool. I felt really good. So about 40 minutes into the dive is when we were going to call it. And we made a plan before on the surface, right? Which you do because it's much easier to talk on the surface. And we're like, I'm going to go down. I think he had more air. So I'm like, I'm going to go down at 40 minutes. I'm going to go up with the samples and you stay and do your thing. And everything was cool. 40 minutes comes. And I'm feeling good. And so I look at him, I kind of, look at my watch, and I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm like, all right, I'll see you later. I'm going up. And so I take the samples. I think he's got the saw of death that's already folded back. He's gonna take that up, and I start to go up. And I gotta say, you guys, like immediately, even before I started really going up, started to feel really bad. Now, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm gonna be sick. It was like, I started kind of really feeling like I needed more air, right? I was like, and I was kind of over breathing my regulator, but at the same time, I was like, I don't get this. Like, I feel cool. My mind was very calm. And I was like, I feel cool. I feel like I'm in control. I'm not swimming too fast, but I just feel like I can't get my breath. This is weird. And I am not panicking. I'm pretty good in those situations. I'm like, Andrew, just be cool. But it was like my body couldn't. It was like, right? And you can't shoot up when you're scuba diving, or you have an air embolism and die. You don't want to do that, right? The rule always in scuba diving is slow. So I'm taking it slow. I'm kind of worried that I can't control my breathing, but I'm still like doing my thing. At 15 feet, that's where we do what's called a safety stop. You stop at 15 feet for 3 minutes for a safety stop. Now, I will tell you guys that a dive to 70 feet for 40 minutes is like no big deal in scuba diving world. It's not super shallow, but it's nothing crazy. We're totally within what I would call the chart, right? We're totally within spec. We're legal, in all ways. Nothing edgy. And for diving nerds out there, it was a nitrox dive, and a dive at that depth. Nitrox give you even extra level of safety. So even with every safety precaution, and you got to realize we're in the middle of the jungle, right? So if anything goes real wrong, I mean, hope for the best, but that truck ride is long. There's no magic helicopter that comes. We're just got to deal. So I'm sort of thinking of all this as I'm floating at 15 feet for 3 minutes doing my safety stop. And I'm really like I can't get my breath. I finally, the 15-foot safety stop, right? The 3 minutes is done. I go up to the surface. I just spit my regulator out and I'm like, just sort of breathing the real air and being like, oh, thank God. And I'm just laying there because you sort of inflate your BC, right? Your kind of backpack that holds your tank, and you can just sort of float there and do nothing. And I'm just sort of relaxing, and the people on the surface, there's a couple people on the edge of the cenote, and they're like kind of like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, just give me a second. But in that moment, I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of slowly doing a check. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm okay. God, do I have an air embolism? I'm like, no, I don't think so. I can move and everything. Yeah, I kind of have I have a headache, and I feel generally crappy, but I'm okay, right? We're doing an honest assessment. Feel bad, but okay. So I get out and I tell everyone, right? I tell the other divers. There's 5 of us total. Some who are still down. But I'm like, you guys, I'm not freaking out. I'm not like, here, we need to go to a hospital, but I feel like crap. right? I feel just like I feel out of sorts. And so they're monitoring me, and which is what what you want to do. I am, though, generally feeling better. I am on the road to recovery. Being out, I'm getting better, though. So it's weird. But then the rest of the divers come out. Again, 5 total. 3 divers feel totally fine. 1 other guy feels bad like me. And this is a very mature diver who's done this a ton of times. Same thing. He's like, man, I just don't feel, I just over-breathing. Same thing. Now, we're in the middle of the jungle. Everyone's out. Everyone is vaguely safe. We could still go to the hospital, and start our trek if we really thought somebody had an air embolism or something like that. But this didn't play that way. I think it was fine that we didn't start absolutely going to a hospital or something. We were just metering it out. He and I were both the same. We were feeling better. We were getting better. What happened? It was 2 possibilities. Possibility number 1, he and I independently overexerted ourselves under the water. Again, doing that sawing and stuff, that is hard work. And that could happen. 2 out of 5 of us overexerted ourselves. Thing number 2, we could have had contaminated air of some kind where some of the tanks were contaminated. This can happen like when you're filling the tanks. Hey, a car goes by with and the exhaust gets sucked in while you're filling the tank. Now you have carbon monoxide in there, a little bit of which could be no big deal. But you don't want any. I mean, it's always bad. But in diving, because as you go down, you're breathing more air because of compression. You're breathing more air per breath. The most minute bit of carbon monoxide, if you're down at like 70 feet, becomes horrible because you're taking that much more in per breath. See, you could die. So it was very hard to say what was up. But now it's lunchtime. We're all kind of feeling better. Do we do the next dive? You got to think, we're in the middle of the jungle. We have gotten all our resources out there. It costs a lot of money, a lot of time. It's a nice day. It's not raining. I actually felt okay. And so did the other diver, my friend who had the same thing I did. We all felt generally better. Do you do the next dive? In the moment, it's a hard call. You're like, maybe we just motor through. But the dive master on the project, he said, no, we are not doing another dive because some of these other tanks could be contaminated. It could go from bad to worse. And you know what? He was completely and utterly right. So we ended our day. We got home. We did the carbon-14 dates. Hey, I got a moment in National Geographic, but I'm still here to talk about it because we made the right decision. And I always take that with me. Where if you're in a very out of the way place and something just is kind of weird, do not double down on that. Take the safe way out, stop for the day. You can always come back tomorrow.